Good morning, and welcome to Sunday. It's Sunday. Yes, Sunday. Meant to say now.
Oh, am I?
That's your cue.
I was getting confused because it's actually Saturday. Though, of course, this is Sunday Chat!
Yeah, that's why I'm welcoming people to Sunday, Paul.
Oh, right, okay.
Doesn't matter when we're filming it.
Welcome to Sunday.
Oh, I've got a bit of a glow on now.
Have you?
Well, I've just done a few things, Paul.
Have you?
I'd like cleaned my hairbrush. That takes quite a bit of energy.
Oh, dear.
No, it does.
Does it?
We have to get all the bits off.
You do, yeah.
I do like a clean hairbrush.
Yeah.
Don't
yeah.
you?
Well, you don't want it dirty.
I can't bear it when I go into people's homes and see a hairbrush full of hair and bits.
When do you ever go into somebody else's home?
Secretly.
Is this with a balaclava, a black balaclava and all clad in black?
Yeah.
Are you like a sort
And
of
night vision
spy?
goggles.
Oh.
Just checking on people's hairbrushes.
And if they are terribly dirty...
I judge them.
Oh, right. So that's it. That's the whole point of...
I judge you
Right.
for your dirty hairbrush. And the state of your toilet.
Do you clean them?
What I do is I clean their toilet with their hairbrush.
I knew he was going to say that. Oh, that's horrible, isn't it?
What is?
That thought.
What, cleaning somebody's toilet with a hairbrush?
Yeah.
Well, you deserve it if you can't be bothered to remove that nasty old hair. Anyway, yeah. No, I've been doing a few things. I did a little bit of cleaning while I was upstairs. I've just moved the dehumidifier to another room. Yes, we bought one.
We did.
More about that later. There's a little bit of sadness this week. Well, a lot of sadness,
Quite a
actually.
lot, yeah.
Unfortunately, we've had a bereavement. My Auntie Bev, that's my dad's sister. Died last week.
Yeah, yeah.
Unexpectedly. We saw her a few weeks ago when we went to my sister's birthday party. And to all intents and purposes, she was well. I mean, no one knows if somebody has hidden illnesses that they're not disclosing. I don't know what the actual state of her health was, but yeah, she died unexpectedly. So.
But, I mean, that's really sad, but I'm just so glad that we were able to have that time with her on that Friday. You had a really long chat with her.
Yeah.
Outside, I think. I had a really long chat at the table, and, that was really, yeah.
Yeah, so it's kind of been a strange week in a number of ways. Obviously, the mood has been coloured by that, as it is. But, it's okay. It's okay. I do sort of find the older we get, it seems to be more often that we're losing people.
Well,
and that's the way of things. That's the way of life, the way of this world. I think there are some very lucky families who have lots of elders who reach their 90s, and that's great. Yeah, it is what it is.
Yeah.
I think it's important to put death into perspective in terms of the grieving process. I try not to allow those kind of things to overwhelm me for too long,
Do you feel they drag you down if you do?
Yeah.
Yeah,
because you go into a spiral of, grief, thoughts about people that you've lost, the inevitability, your own mortality, all of those things which can spiral you down into a quagmire of emotions. And I think if you allow that to go on for too long, it can cause depression.
Yeah.
I know, I've been there, but I don't allow myself to go there now. I try to stay on an even keel because there are plenty of things to be getting on with in life that are important to us. So you can't waste too much time on the grieving process, I believe. So yeah, it's, it's one
I
of those
spoke
things.
to Mum yesterday. I speak to Mum regularly, and when I spoke to her yesterday, she was she again said, I'd be quite happy to just sort of go in my sleep. I think that's the best thing, isn't it? And she said, if it happened tonight, you shouldn't be sad about it. And it's like, well, you're bound to be sad. I said to Mum, you're bound to be sad, Mum.
It's a normal and natural thing to feel sad and to go through the grieving process. But I think, I don't know, I think there are lots of leftovers still in our society from the Victorian age. Queen Victoria dressing in black for virtually the remainder of her life, grieving over her husband, Prince Albert.
Wasn't it something like 6 years of grieving or something?
And it kind of set a trend, didn't it? I think the Victorians were obsessed with death.
Yeah.
Because there was so much of it. We forget that there weren't the medicines around that we have now. People still lost children very regularly. Life expectancy wasn't that high. Society for the poorer end of the spectrum was pretty awful. So there was this obsession with death, and the funerals that we've had in our family, we've tended to say, please don't wear black, wear bright colours, celebrate life. And I think there are lots of other cultures that have a different approach to funerals and death, and
And of course, there's many cultures that actually it's just a stepping stone to something else as well.
Obviously, depending on what the culture believes.
Well, that's what I mean. There's many cultures that they believe there is something, beyond, or you get reborn,
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It's an interesting subject. It's a very sad subject, but it doesn't need to be sad. I think we need to kind of talk more about it, especially in our society here. I mean, I'm not making light of it. Far from it. It's a very sad thing to go through, and I felt very sad at several moments this week about it. But I simply don't allow myself to get swept along with it for too long, because there's other things to do.
Yeah. And I found myself thinking about Dad a lot this week.
Yeah.
And Mum. But Dad. So it's interesting. I mean, it's anything that happens that is sort of quite major. It obviously brings back all those memories and those times. It I wouldn't say it drags things up, but it brings things to the surface. So you obviously think about things a bit more. I was saying in A Guernsey Gardener in London that when I was writing it, that it's going to be odd this year not going down to the plot to get Brussels sprouts on Christmas Day, because normally that would happen and we're going to be buying them. And as soon as I'd sort of typed all of that, I then had to take a moment. I came downstairs to make a coffee, because I started thinking about Dad and I going out on Christmas morning to pick the Brussels sprouts and various other things, So
you have a sort of flood of emotions, don't you? And it sort of takes you over for a moment. When that happens to me and you, we kind of go with it.
Yeah.
Go with it, ride it through, allow the tears to come, allow yourself to feel it. But, there was a time many years ago when I lost my mom. I was 28. She was only 52. I was taken over with that for what felt like years, to be honest. Just felt paralysed by it. I've got an eyelash. I felt paralysed by it, and I think I sort of vowed to myself after being in therapy that I would never allow myself to be paralysed by that again, because it just wastes a lot of time. Anyway, let's move on. Let's move on. But we feel it's, valid to share that with you because it's kind of part of the week. I've had a little bit of a cold, I think.
You think?
Yeah, because I've had a very sore nose. Just inside, I think I've got a little tiny cold sore, which has been really irritating me, and my nose has been running, not horrendously, but I've not, I've tested for COVID, it's not COVID, so...
I felt a bit odd earlier in the week, no, Monday or Tuesday,
Yeah.
and I did a test then and was fine. I felt, a little bit dizzy, actually, and I had a headache, which I used to have quite a lot of headaches, but I have headaches pretty rarely now. And I had a headache off and on for a couple of days. And I said to you, maybe it's a virus, so I tested, but certainly wasn't COVID. And by the following day, I was fine.
There are quite a number of colds going around at the moment.
Well, and flu. I think it's 10 times higher this year than last year.
Yeah, you've had your flu jab. I've not had mine yet. We
Oh,
were meant to have it at work.
Yeah, you should have had.
It's not happened, so I need to find out what's going on with that, because it's quicker to have it through the people that do it for the workplaces than get an appointment through the GP.
No, you can go to the chemist. Are
they having an open flu clinic,
Yeah.
or do you have to book it?
No, you can just go anytime.
Oh, well, I'll do that then, Bob.
And he'll...
Yeah, that's fine. I'll sort that out. They're not open tomorrow. No, it's Sunday. My week has been a bit all over the place, really, because it's my first full-time week in a long, long, long time. So I'm kind of totally thrown off by that. Feeling a little tired this morning, and sort of having to sandwich in all of those household chores.
Yeah, and mine has been a bit sort of backwards and forwards this week as well, because you've been back at work. There's been days when I've been doing things and I think, oh, it must be such and such. Oh no, it's this day, because you would normally be home doing something, or like yesterday, that's Friday, we'd have normally been filming this on a Friday, and of course, because you're at work, we're not. And then also this week, I went to Vanessa on Thursday, and I normally go to Vanessa on a Tuesday.
Yeah.
So that's sort of...
Yeah.
I don't know, it's just felt... I said this in a text to Vivi earlier, actually. It feels as though it's been a full week, but not necessarily a busy week, if you see what I mean. The time has been full, but not rushing around. Even though, of course, I went to Cranley for the day on Thursday. But yeah, it's funny when your routine changes, isn't it? It takes some time to get used to it.
I've tried not to think about it, to be honest. I've tried not to think about doing full-time work. I've tried to just embrace it, and rather than saying, oh, it's Wednesday, oh, I would have been finishing at 12:30 today.
Yeah.
Oh, rather than thinking like that, it's like lunch at 1, back to work.
Yeah.
That's it, rather than reflecting on the alternative. But it's been okay. It's been fine. The thing about my work is that, for those of you who don't know, I'm a receptionist for the NHS and social care for our local learning disability team. I've been in that job for, I think it's 15 years now.
Great.
I know the job really well. I can do it in my sleep virtually. There's lots of administration that I do as well. I do a lot of updating of records and uploading of case notes and documents to people's files, meeting and greeting people, managing clinics, various bits and pieces. So my days roll along. It's not like working for A&E or anything like that. It's not a frantic job. It requires lots of empathy, lots of supporting people, talking to parents, carers, service users. It requires a lot of care. And it requires good knowledge of our client base and how they react to situations. So, very often you're managing people's emotions and trying to reassure people that everything's going to work out for them, trying to communicate their situations to social workers and clinicians to give them a full picture of why that person's calling and what their issues are, message taking, it's all of that.
And also, because you've been there 15 years, you have known some of those clients for over a decade.
Yep.
And of course, in social care, there is quite a, people move around and, get different jobs. And in some cases, not that you'll know more about the in-depth of that particular client, but you'll know how they manage and how they react in different situations. So you'll be giving some advice to others about, so-and-so feels anxious in a, closed room or something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah.
I do know those kind of things, and I know the clients that are potentially going to kick off, and how to, try and keep them feeling stable and happy whilst they're waiting for their appointment. There's a lot of expertise that goes into my role because I've made it my business to be as good as I can at supporting those people, because, at the end of the day, when you work for the NHS or social care, you're dealing with people's lives. And a lot of empathy is required. You can't be too clinical about it. And I've been to doctors' surgeries and A&E as well, where the receptionists sometimes just don't give a damn. And you kind of wonder. It's like, really.
Our surgery years ago used to be quite like that, didn't it?
There were these witches on reception, complete witches, that you were kind of afraid of. And I don't think it should be like that at all. They should be the allies for the customers, not for the doctors, not for the people at the surgery. You should be the ally of the customer and be on their side. A lot of my job is problem solving, so I will usually know who to go to, who to pass on the information to get the problem solved, which very often goes beyond our team. So there's quite a bit of signposting that happens. So anyway, in a nutshell, the week rolls along, the job continues as it normally does, and it's manageable. So it's been okay. It's been okay. I did it for many years. It's kind of like slipping an old coat on, kind of feels comfortable straight away, which I was quite surprised at. But anyway, Paul, we've missed the segment we normally do at the start.
What has the weather been like?
Yeah, what has the weather been like?
It's been pretty mixed, hasn't it?
Yeah, we've had a couple of miserable days.
Yeah.
Dark. I mean, this is one of the darkest times of the year in the UK.
Yeah.
We're building up to the solstice, so it means that sunrise around the solstice time is about 8 o'clock in the morning, and sunset is about 3:40, 3:45, something like that. So the days are really short, and when it's damp and dark and wet, it feels like it's dark all day.
It does. And I think in my article, A Guernsey Gardener in London, I do actually say that November's been pretty favourable when it hasn't been pretty miserable. And I think that's true. There's been days where I have been in shirt sleeves, just 2 t-shirts at the plot in the sun, and it's been glorious. And then there's been other days where I've just been completely sort of clothed naked. I don't think so.
It's been cold and damp, but we've had moments of brightness. It's been bright this morning, but it's cool. It was a cold night, wasn't it? And we've had a couple of cold nights.
Yeah.
Not freezing.
No. Well, we've had frost, We've had frost at the plot. We haven't had frost at home yet.
Because you're in a dip.
We're in a dip. The river does actually lift the temperature a little bit, but we're still in a dip. And because our plot is at the higher end, there's a certain time of year where we're actually cooler than the lower end, which is nearer the river, and we're just in that time at the moment. So so we had a little bit of frost the other day, not too much, and the brassicas are looking great. So
good.
Yeah.
So we've got brassicas for Christmas.
We have brassicas. Yes.
Oh, we need to say happy Thanksgiving to all our friends across the pond. We do hope you enjoyed your Thanksgiving celebration.
I can't remember. Is it what are they giving thanks for? I can't remember. Just being alive.
I don't know really.
Yeah.
Don't know anything about Thanksgiving. We don't celebrate Thanksgiving.
No,
Isn't
but
it Thanksgiving to the founding fathers?
It is Thanksgiving to the founding
and all
fathers.
of that.
Yeah, but I don't really know very much.
We don't
about
have
it.
any founding fathers because we're an ancient civilization.
No, we celebrate Guy Fawkes on the 5th of November instead, but we don't have a holiday, so there we are.
We don't give thanks to Guy Fawkes, unfortunately, because frankly we should do.
Yeah.
If he'd have succeeded.
Yeah.
I think it would have done us a favour, frankly.
Somebody that I know, his ancestors in Ireland actually harboured quite a lot of the plotters of Guy Fawkes before they came over from Ireland to do this.
Oh,
so
God.
yeah. Anyway, it's a very bizarre side story.
So that's it. Let's look at the book. Let's look at the book to see what else we need to talk about.
I don't think I slept that well last night. I feel a bit tired today.
Oh, that saddens me.
I love that voice where it's sort of like, I don't really care, you know.
But it's gentle and
that's
nurturing
happened.
too.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
So
it's
yes.
quite interesting because when I was talking to Mum
That'd be
yesterday,
interesting.
Mum was telling me about something that wasn't quite going right. It was not an issue, and I now remember what Richard has said to me before. You know, go with it. You know, don't just be calm and gentle and go with the conversation. And I was doing that yesterday. So there was like, oh, what's that, Mum? Oh, right, okay. You know, it wasn't, oh, you know, that's terribly sad, or, yeah, it was just interesting.
The thing is, I think, you know, I've learned over the years to try not to give advice to people. You know, facilitate them talking about whatever it is, because it's their stuff.
Yeah.
It's not yours. So, you know, don't be quick to give advice. I mean, if it's practical advice, like how to bleed a radiator, then fine. Obviously, if you know how to deal with it, then that's great. But if it's about something that they have an issue with that they're trying to solve, if you can't solve it for them, which you very often can't if it's a personal issue, people will take their own advice. Don't dish out advice. Don't be quick to tell them what to do.
No.
Facilitate them finding out the best way for them to deal with it.
So with Mum, we did go through this conversation for about 5 minutes, and then I said, well, maybe you could ask so-and-so, you know. Oh, yes, I could do that. I think I will do that. Yeah. So I could have said that right at the beginning, you know. But actually, it was worth going through that process, because then when we got to the conclusion of Mum going to ask the person a particular question, it was something that Mum had actually come to and made up her own mind about.
Let's move on, yeah.
Yes.
So we mentioned that we've bought a dehumidifier. We had a run of fairly cold, damp nights, and our bedroom was just so full of condensation. I was having to wipe the windows, and I sort of became a little concerned that it was getting too humid, so we kind of bit the bullet. Several people had suggested to us that it might be an idea to do that. Thank you. And one of my friends had told me that she uses it to help speed up the drying time of her washing. And it's not that I didn't believe her, I just thought, well, you know, is it worth it? So we decided to buy one. And yeah, they do work. I know they're meant to work, and you know,
well, that,
machines
yeah,
that do the job. But I tried it with the washing in the same room as the washing, and yeah, it dried super quick.
It did.
Really well. I mean, obviously you have to have a little bit of heating on as well, because it won't work in a very cold room. They have an operating temperature. But yeah, it did work. It worked really well.
But it's also because we're not having the heating on as much. So things felt as though they had got quite damp. Not wet.
Not wet.
But when you were getting into bed at night, it felt as though the bedclothes they had a moisture to them, if you see what I mean.
Not pleasant.
No. And anyway, that has gone now. The bed is cool when we get into it. We don't use hot water bottles or anything. I think we might if it gets colder. But the bed's cool when you get into it, but it doesn't have that damp feel anymore.
It really has been worthwhile. We bought a smallish model, not a small one, because I've heard they are useless. So it's sort of medium-sized one. And yeah, it does the job. It does the job of removing moisture from the air, and we've kind of moved it around the house to treat the rooms.
And it does feel warmer because that humidity is down.
Yeah.
It feels warmer anyway.
So that's good.
That's been beneficial.
Pleased with that.
So we've had quite a few fires as well, haven't we, Richard?
We have. Because frankly, I'm not willing to compromise on my comfort in the evenings. You know, we work hard, and I do not expect to have to sit in a cold lounge of an evening watching TV feeling uncomfortable. I'm not going to do it. But I tell you what I've also done as well. I made the video about trying to light smokeless fuel with eco-friendly firelighters, and I succeeded in doing that. Mm-hmm. However, I have discovered that trying to light a fire, a small fire, using the eco firelighters when the coal is damp and cold is very difficult. Very, very difficult to do. So I've ditched those namby-pamby firelighters and bought kerosene ones. And they light the fire very quickly.
Yeah, they
very
do.
quickly.
Yeah.
Because you know what? We need to get this room warm quickly. I can't be waiting for the whole thing to heat up for 2 hours. So they might not be as eco-friendly, and probably not eco-friendly at all, but they light a small fire quickly, and that's what we need. So you know what?
What?
I mean, we're into the eco thing. We try our best to be as eco-friendly as possible. But, you know, I feel as though we've all been forced into a corner by all the issues, by the cost of living issues.
Yeah.
You know, we need to get the room warm of an evening. We need to do that quickly. And the only way to do it is to get that fire lit in this method, using kerosene firelighters. Because we need to do that. That's it.
Well, you want a fire,
and we both have underlying health
do.
Conditions.
Yeah.
So it's important that we do stay warm. We have the means to do it. That's what we're doing.
There we are.
You know, we try our best in other ways to be as eco as possible.
It's interesting.
There has to be a compromise somewhere, I'm afraid.
The whole eco.
So me.
Yeah, anyway, I'm not going to go into that. So, yeah, what's on the agenda today, Richard? I was just going to go into the eco thing and COP27 and all of that, and population control and people having too many babies, people having babies when they shouldn't be, thinking about their children in the future and what the future is going to be for their children. and I decided not to go into it.
There's a lot of much bigger issues at stake in the world than us lighting a fire of an evening, you know, really, frankly.
Anyway, what's on the agenda
and
before I go into one? Yeah.
Yeah. So, Paul, that's it.
Is that it?
Apart from television.
Right, okay.
We're trying to keep it a quick one this week because we've got a lot to do today.
It's been quite rambling so far.
I know, I do apologise. Not really.
No. Anyway, what have we been watching this week?
So we finished Andor.
Yeah.
This season of Andor. Excellent.
It was funny because you saw about a new episode of Andor, and which is on Disney. And I said, but we've watched them all. And I think what happened is we'd watched them all up to when we went to Guernsey, and then we thought that the one that we'd watched was actually the season finale. So we weren't looking out for new episodes. And suddenly, when you said about this one, we had a look, and there was
load of new episodes.
There was like another 5 episodes to watch, and one about to come out. So yeah, we finished that. We really enjoyed it.
Yeah,
I mean, for me, it sort of was. It was new. It was Star Wars, but it was new. You know, it was interesting and great storyline, great acting, good actors in it. A lot of faces that we know. Yeah. Some of them, Andy Serkis is in it, and I worked with him years ago on a Pete Hall production, and there was another person.
Plenty of faces.
Yeah.
You can summarise it in that. That's fine.
But it's nice. There was another person that I worked with on a production of MAD at the Bush Theatre. It was nice to see him in something on, you know, anyway.
In a coma.
Yeah.
As I was for most of the rest of these programmes.
Oh, yes.
So apparently we watched See How They Run.
We did.
No, I have absolutely no recollection whatsoever of watching that film.
So See How They Run is sort of based on, it is based on Agatha Christie's Mousetrap, and it's about something that happens on the opening night of the Mousetrap in London.
No.
And it goes on, and we right at the end we visit Agatha Christie's house and meet Agatha Christie and her husband.
I think I must have been secretly asleep for the whole film.
And I actually got my tablet out this morning and I showed him.
No.
And he went,
no. Got no idea at all.
So there we are.
I can remember other things, but not that. No recollection at all.
There we are.
At all. So also other things, you finished off Death on the Nile.
Yeah.
Didn't watch any of that either. I fell asleep to that.
He fell asleep to the extra bit that I watched.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We also continued with a series called The Cabinet of Curiosities. We watched an episode called The Autopsy. We kind of got quite far and then we switched off because it just became, the level of gore became unnecessary.
Yeah.
You know, we could deal with a certain part of gore, a certain amount of gore to a certain point. But then I said, no, this is making me feel queasy now. Switch it off.
Yeah, so I don't think I think that was the third one and we won't be watching any more.
Well, they're standalones.
They're standalones,
so we will watch another one. What We Do in the Shadows.
Well, we turned off the second one. We didn't... the rats.
Yeah, oh God, yeah. It's far too much. What We Do in the Shadows we continue with. There is a slight disappointment with this season. I don't think it's as good as the other seasons.
No.
I think they need to switch it up or change it, take them out of their environment a little bit more often.
Well, I'm surprised because they've opened a nightclub, and I'm surprised we're not seeing more of them in the nightclub. Yeah. And the last or the most recent episode is actually all about house renovation, and it was sort of quite funny, but it didn't feel as though it was part of the series, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel as though they're struggling to switch it up. I don't know. Interesting. We started a series called 1899, which apparently is the top show on Netflix at the moment.
It's from the creators of Dark, which we really, really enjoyed.
But we got to a certain point, and it, to be honest, it challenged me in a number of ways. And I just wasn't in the mood this week to be challenged by things that far.
Yeah.
It started off on a ship, and it got to this point where they were about to send one of the engine room men up a tube in the engine.
And he was like, no, I don't want to
I said,
see
no.
that."
This is on a ship for a start, which is challenging to me anyway. And he's about to go up some dark tube in the engine room. I don't think so. Not at the moment.
We moved on from that.
Yeah, sorry, but that's the way it goes. Sometimes I just want my viewing to be pleasurable.
Yeah.
I don't want it to challenge me. I've been challenged enough throughout the day. I don't want any more challenge, thank you.
Oh, magpie. Big fat magpie.
We've also started the US series of Ghosts.
Oh, yes.
I was hoping for it to be better than the UK
Oh, I think
version.
it's better than the UK version.
I think it's slightly better. Feels a bit stilted. I think it's probably because the BBC were involved in it. I think if they'd have just sort of given the US production carte blanche, it might have been a bit peppier. But it feels, I don't know, the pace is a little bit better than the UK version, but it's still very light, let's call it that.
Yeah.
We've also started Wednesday. This is Wednesday from the Addams Family.
You fell asleep.
I fell asleep.
That has actually been the, what's gone on this week.
Catherine Zeta-Jones as Morticia. She ain't a patch on Angelica Houston. For me, Angelica Houston nailed it.
But it was different direction, and I think that...
And I love both of those films, The Addams Family and
Yeah.
Addams Family Values. I think they're both fantastic films. So you've got big shoes to fill. I felt the comedy timing was slightly off, which again is direction.
I thought the swimming pool bit at the beginning was funny. I thought that was funny. But I don't know, it's...
Well, it left me with unanswered questions. Where did she get hold of 2 bags of piranha fish from that quickly?
Yeah. And
Really?
also, how did the piranha fish get out of the bags? Because they seem to dissolve in the water.
Yeah.
And if they did dissolve in the water because there was water already in the bags, why did... Anyways, things like that.
Yeah, it was a bit odd.
We'll go back to it and carry on and see how far we get.
We also watched a thing on YouTube, the Surrey Hills Symposium.
Yes,
Which was all about...
Surrey Hills is an area of outstanding natural beauty, and it was about access to the Surrey Hills and use of the Surrey Hills.
And use of the countryside in general.
In general, yeah.
And also touching on how minority groups don't access the countryside in the same way that English white people do or British white people do.
Yeah.
Because of various barriers.
Barriers, and also in some cases cultures.
Cultural barriers,
yeah.
Cultural ideas. So that was very interesting. It featured a speaker from a Muslim hikers group, which was really interesting.
Haroon Motta.
Really, really interesting to hear him talk. Several interesting speakers on there. It was something that you'd been told about through.
Well, I knew through for Earth's sake.
Yeah.
We'd been invited to it, and in the end, because my days changed this week with Vanessa, I couldn't attend. So we attended virtually by watching it live on YouTube.
It was really good. It was really enjoyable.
Yeah.
Will it be rewatchable
Yeah.
on YouTube?
Yeah, it is.
Surrey Hills Symposium.
Yeah.
You might find it of interest. It certainly had a few interesting speakers, so it's worth a watch. We also watched a series called Ancient Apocalypse, was it called?
Yeah, on
with Graham Hancock.
Netflix.
Again, I fell asleep. It was a little. I like Graham Hancock, I really do, and he investigates ancient civilizations, and his theory is that these civilizations are much older than we think they are. He believes and has investigated various threads back in history that suggest that civilizations, intelligent, advanced civilizations, go back way further than we think. And I tend to believe that. He reckons that we're suffering from amnesia as a race, as the human race, that we forget over the eons, we forget that there were these advanced races because stuff gets lost, you know.
Well, it's also because they rise and fall, don't they?
Yeah, and the information gets lost because of various natural processes, you know, erosion, things get built up, you know, archaeology doesn't always go as far as it needs to. So really interesting, but I did fall asleep because it was, to be honest, a little bit repetitive.
Yeah, I think this is...
and a bit drawn out.
This is the thing with these documentaries, and it sort of feels more like an American... Well, it is an American documentary, but I don't feel British documentaries, or certainly they didn't used to tell you what was going to happen and what had happened before they actually start talking about the sort of meat and two veg, if you see what I mean.
What you mean the beginning? In this program, we talk about this.
Yeah, and then you get to the break. I mean, there aren't breaks in Netflix, but it's obviously made to be sold on. So you get to the break, and then you come back after the break, and then they tell you exactly what's happened. You know, in the first bit, just in case you've missed that first bit.
Yeah.
And then they carry on.
I hate
and
all
I
that.
hate that.
Yeah, I do
you know,
too.
because
Treats you like an idiot.
You're just then reiterating things time and time and
but
time
you see,
again.
the Brian Cox space ones, they were a little bit drawn out as well. You know, going on about the majesty of the night sky. We know that. Get to the facts. You know, cut it down by half.
Yeah.
We want facts and we want interesting stuff. Show us what you've uncovered. In fact, cut the whole series in half, frankly. They just do it for airtime's sake, don't they, I'm sure?
Wow.
To draw it out so they can sell a 50-minute programme.
Oh, yeah, most likely.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's it. That's what we've watched on TV this week.
So, I've watched quite a bit and you've slept through quite a bit.
Yeah, I have. But, you know, I guess my energy levels have been a little bit lower this week. And I do get to a point in the evening where if I'm not really engaged, like with Andor, for example, really engaged with that, I'll just give in to my desire to slumber.
And it was with 11/22/63 you were engaged with that, weren't you? Yeah. So, you know, we got through that.
It's got to be good to please me. It's got to be really good to please me. Otherwise, I'd rather sleep. Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
Anywho, Paul, that's it for this week's
Sunday Chat!
Apologies if it's not as effervescent as usual. But that's life, folks. That's life.
It is.
So take care. Toodle pip, au revoir. And we'll see you very soon.
We'll see you next week.
Bye for now.
Bye.